Hello all. Happy Tuesday and welcome to the 2023 OREI Technical Assistance Webinar. Before we get started today, we would like to go further through our non-discrimination statement.
In accordance with federal civil rights law and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA civil rights regulations and policies, the USDA, its agencies, offices and employees, and institutions participating in or administering USDA programs are prohibited from discriminating based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, gender identity, including gender expression, sexual orientation, disability, age, marital status, family, parental status, income derived from a public assistance program, political beliefs, or reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity, and any program or activity or funded by USDA. Not all bases apply to all programs. Remedies and complaint filing deadlines vary by program or incident. So this slide contains contact information for individuals with disabilities to request reasonable accommodations. Language access services will be provided to limited English proficient individuals upon request, and anyone wishing to file a complaint can utilize the phone number, fax number, or postal mailing address that is also listed on this slide.
Okay, thank you, Catherine, for that. And this is our NEFA Organic Programs team, and we will go ahead and introduce ourselves. I am Matthew, or just Matt Ngowaggio. I'm a National Science Liaison working with the organic programs, and I'm located in the Division of Plant Systems Production.
Good afternoon. I'm Steve Smith. I'm National Program Leader for Animal Production Systems.
Good afternoon. My name is Catherine Bonnert, and I'm a program specialist in the Plant Production Division.
Okay. Then the goal of this technical assistant webinar is mainly to answer your questions. But in order to get there, we will need to cover a few topics here. First, the NEFA overview, the overview of this program, the request for applications called RFA. We will be using that acronym a lot, RFA. We will talk about the proposal evaluation process and provide some additional information for you. Now, just quickly go through NEFA overview. The National Institute of Food and Agriculture, called NEFA, is the extramural science funding agency within USDA's research, education, and economics mission area. NEFA invests in and supports initiatives that ensure the long-term viability of agriculture. NEFA provides funding and strategic leadership for programs that ensure groundbreaking discoveries in agriculture-related sciences and technologies reach the people who can put them into practice. I know we are all here today for the organic program, but we just wanted to let you know that NEFA does more than just organic program. And in fact, our organic program is just a very small, tiny fraction of our NEFA portfolio. And you can see here a broad range of topics that we cover at NEFA. You will have access to these slides at the end of this presentation, so you can go back and look at some of these and check to see what programs are offered in each of these categories. Now, an overview of this program. The Organic Agriculture Research and Extension Initiative, and we will be referring to this as OREI. This seeks to solve critical organic agriculture issues, priorities, or problems through the integration of research, education, and extension activities. This is important. Integration of research, education, and extension activities. The purpose of this program is to fund high priority integrated projects that will enhance the competitiveness of producers and processors who have already adopted organic standards. And you can see here, most of the information that we're presenting to you today is pulled from the RFA, the request for application. And in most of our slides, we will show the page number, like this information here is from page 6 of the RFA. Now, what are the priorities that we are interested in for the 2023 funding cycle? Those are listed on page 7 to 8 of the RFA, and we do have 9 different priorities for this year. I am not going to read verbatim all of them, but I will provide a few highlights on each of the priorities. Priority 1 is to conduct advanced on-farm research on crops, livestock, or integrated livestock and crop programs. And this can include activity like production, marketing, socioeconomic, and environmental considerations. For priority 2, we are interested in projects that will develop and demonstrate educational tools for cooperative extension personnel and other professionals who advise producers on organic practices. Priority 3 is focusing mainly on post-harvest handling, processing, and food safety practices. So all projects focusing on post-harvest, processing, and food safety will fit in priority 3. Priority 4 is what we usually call our seed and breed priority. It's to strengthen organic crop propagation systems, including seed and transplant production. Here with the emphasis on publicly available releases. For our priority number 5, we want to explore technologies that meet the requirement of the National Organic Programs, while at the same time protecting our soil, water, and other natural resources. These could include system-based integration management programs to address diseases, nematodes, weeds, and insect pest-related problems. Priority 6, now shifting more for animal system, is to develop or improve system-based animal production, animal health, and pest management practices. Priority 7 is about animal breeding. So we want to breed, evaluate, and select animal breeds and genotypes adapted to organic systems. Priority 8 is our curriculum priority. We want to develop undergraduate and or graduate curriculum for organic agriculture. And finally, priority 9 is to identify marketing, policy, and socio-economic barriers to the expansion of organic agriculture in the United States. And in that priority, we do not accept lobbying or advocacy activities. And again, you can see all of these in the RFA, page 7 to 8. Now, these are some of the other requirements that you will see on page 9 of the RFA. Organic system fieldwork must be done on certified organic land and or facility. However, in special cases, studies can be conducted on land or facilities in transition to organic certification. But the key thing is, as appropriate to project goals and objectives. If you do use land in transition to organic as appropriate to project goal of an objective, it is expected that that land or facility will be fully certified by the end of your project. Also, we hear a lot of people say, I'm using organic standard. For us, for this program, a land is not considered certified organic unless it has received USDA certification. For studies using investigating animal health, we also expect that to be conducted in organic settings. And the final bullet here is that we do have 2 programs in organic, focusing in organic agriculture, but projects that overlap significantly cannot be submitted to both programs. That is this program and the organic transition or any other NIFA program. This is another requirement from this program, which is very specific to OREI. And you will see that requirement on page 19 of the RFA. If you have previously received funding from OREI or ORG, Organic Transition, as a project director, PD, and you are submitting a proposal as a project director, we are asking you to provide the award number for those previous awards and significant outcome from each award, maximum of 300 words per award. Both organic transitions and OREI project are relevant. However, this section does not count against the 21-page limit of the project narrative and will not penalize those who have not received awards before. You probably will be asking yourself, am I qualified to submit an application to this program? My answer will be, this program has a very broad eligibility. If you are a US citizen, if you are a US entity, or if you are submitting an application on behalf of a US entity, you surely probably qualified to submit to this program. I would say the only limit will be for international entities. So if you are in doubt, check with us and we will let you know. But this information is on page 15 of the RFA. Also, we receive a lot of questions from applicants on the limitation on the number of applications. For this program, there is no limit on the number of applications that an eligible institution may submit. We do not limit the number of applications that a PD or a co-PD can submit. And in fact, we don't even limit the number of awards that can go to an institution. However, as we said before, submission of duplicate or predominantly overlapping application within the same fiscal year is not allowed. And if we do find that, we will disqualify all those applications. Now, you will be asking, what are the type of project or grant that we offer? Steve?
Thank you, Matt. As Matt pointed out, we do offer more than one project type and grant type, and we're going to detail that in just as we go through the next few slides. We do offer both integrated and curriculum projects. We invite applications for that type. We also have grant types of standard, conference, and planning grants. So let's look at those a little more closely. For this project, we actually offer 3 tiers of integrated project proposals. In each case, their duration is intended to be 3 to 4 years. Those are standard grant types, with the difference mainly being the maximum funding request that's allowed, scaling up from $1 million to $2 million to $3.5 million, depending on the scale and scope of the project. We also offer curriculum development grants, and those proposals can detail a 3 to 4 year project in a standard grant type. with a support of a maximum of $750,000. Conference proposals are 1-year proposals with a maximum award size of $50,000. And planning proposals, also 1 year and also with a maximum award size of $50,000. Now let's take a little closer look at the integrated project proposals. And by integrated, we mean that they must include research and at least one additional element. And those elements are education or extension. So either research plus education, or research plus extension, or all three combined. But they need to be not just present, but truly integrated, where one informs the other and back and forth. So not just an add-on at the end, but rather from start to finish, each of these components are present and represented. Notice too that we talked about the 3 tiers. The tier 1 proposals, those are the largest in scale and scope. We try to avoid a geographical definition of these projects, but there is a sense that these will be large coordinated projects addressing critical issues that cut across multiple regions. And they do, because of their scale and scope, require an advisory board for these grant applications. Tier 2 proposals, these are also multidisciplinary projects addressing issues that may be either national or regional, but they are somewhat smaller in scope than the tier 1s. And again, it's all about matching the scale and scope of your project to the award amount being requested. Tier 3, those are the smallest. These are projects addressing specific critical constraints, but possibly with a more narrow scope or a more localized application. Curriculum development proposals are largely what they sound like. These are intended to provide assistance in the development of undergraduate and graduate curriculum in organic agriculture. Projects that will inform and enhance a degree granting program. Under this, the educational activities will include things like instructional delivery, which are obvious, but also experiential learning, including student farmer engagement and student, again, for students enrolled in a degree program. However, routine use of students as personnel on research projects is not considered education for the purpose of this priority. And programs designed to educate growers, and this is where we get into some confusion from time to time. That is not education. That is considered extension within these programs. Conference proposals. These support workshops or symposia, bringing together scientists and others, perhaps even including end users, to identify research, education, or extension needs, or update the attendees with new information, or advance understanding of organic issues and problems using a systems-based approach. Planning proposals, these provide support for development of future OREI proposals, particularly the larger multi-regional applications, where it really takes a fair amount of planning and preparation and coordination to bring these larger teams together to construct a compelling application for one of these larger awards.
Thank you, Steve. And we also hear frequently from our applicants that, we offer 2 programs, OREI and the organic transitions. And the question that we receive very often is, what is the difference between those 2 programs? How do I know where I will submit my application? The answer is we try to keep those 2 programs as separate as possible. But at the same time, we know there should be some overlap. And the areas of overlap, if your project is focusing on improving the efficiency of the production system, if you are focusing on making the system more profitable, or making the US organic system more competitive, you can easily make the case that your project will fit in either of those two programs. Now, the main difference would be the OREI, which is our largest program, is where the rubber meets the roads. It is focusing on studies for operating organic systems. That is those who have already adopted the organic practices. Those studies will be things like on-farm studies, developing educational tools, post-harvest handling, seed and breed, integrated pest management. Steve just talked about the curriculum development programs. And also, that is a unique program where we offer conferences and planning grants. On the other hand, the organic transitions will focus more on ecosystem services of organic agriculture. Things like water, soil, pollinators, biodiversity, greenhouse gases, carbon sequestration. If you are developing tools and models to better evaluate those ecosystem services. And the big categories there is barriers to transition to organic agriculture. We also include in the organic transition all the priorities of the National Organic Program, NOP. And some of them listed there. If you're looking for alternative to antibiotics or alternative to methionine for poultry production, those will fit also in the organic transitions program. But again, check the RFAs for the specific details about those two programs. Steve?
Thank you, Matt. The RFA is fairly effective at telling you what are allowable expenses. However, there are certain very notable expenses that are not allowed, and it's worth highlighting here. Things you cannot do with federal funds: purchase land, purchase farm equipment, at least not competitive grant funds like we have with OREI. You can't build or renovate buildings or facilities, no concrete and steel. International activities. Now, this one falls in a little bit of a gray area because we do encourage international collaboration and certainly allow it, even to the point that international partners can receive subawards. However, the primary benefit to the project needs to be U.S. agriculture. So if you are entertaining an idea of collaborating with someone in an international location where the benefit is predominantly geared to them, or a crop that only exists there, that's not going to be allowed. The other thing, the last item that I want to draw attention to is direct assistance to producers. We do a lot of that within USDA, just not through NIFAS programs. We get questions about cost sharing and matching because there tends to be a little confusion there. Yes, there is a matching requirement, dollar for all federal funds. However, there is an opportunity for a waiver of that matching requirement. In two cases. One, the result of the project, while being a particular benefit to a specific agricultural commodity, is likely to be applicable to agricultural commodities generally. But the one that most commonly applies to organic agriculture and OREI is that a waiver can be offered if the project involves a minor commodity, the project deals with scientifically important research, and the grant recipient is unable to satisfy the matching fund requirements. And why I stress that one more than the first is just because as much as we appreciate the growth that we've seen and the market share we have in organic agriculture, it is still small compared to conventional crops, which allows them to be considered a minor commodity and qualify for that second waiver opportunity. So keep that in mind. And But I will stress, whether you have matching funds or not, that's not going to be factored into the review process as an evaluation criteria.
Okay, now we want to cover some of the details document that you will need for your application. Catherine?
Okay, so the RFA is available online and you can click on that link. Again, we will have the slides available at the same event page that you went to register. We'll make the recording and the slideshow available so you can click directly on it. There's also a helpful guide that compares the OREI and ORG programs. And then also we have a frequently asked questions page that you can access as well. The application deadline is 5 p.m. Eastern Time, April 13th, 2023. And all of the grant applications need to be submitted through the grants.gov website. The total available funding in fiscal year 2023, we have about $44 million in funding that is made available to the states. The program code for this OREI program is 113.A, and then the maximum funding per award is that tier 1 level at $3.5 million. And then we do not have any restrictions on number of proposals per institution or the number of awards per institution. Here are some key documents, and you can find this in the RFA, page 17 through 23. Key components for your application include the project summary and abstract, the executive summary and table of contents, outcome from previous awards, if you have any, project narrative, your bibliography or reference list, the data management plan, the project timeline. You will be required to have a logic model for tier 1 and tier 2 project proposals, a budget, as well as a budget narrative. And there are other documents, and you can find those in the RFA itself. In regard to the project narrative, there is a 21-page limit for that. In conference and planning proposals, it's limited to 7 pages, and this will be strictly enforced. We do want you to have single spacing or 1.5 spacing and encourage you to use 12-point Times New Roman font. And this includes all text and tables and figures. Tables may be single spaced. Applications that exceed the page limitation will be returned without review. In the case if you are submitting an application that is a resubmission, we allow you to have 3 extra pages that do not count towards your project narrative to include a response to the previous review. And when you submit that, just make sure you include your proposal number from your first submission. Steve?
What is required in the data management plan?
Okay. The data management plan is a key component that you are required to prepare. Notice that it's detailed on page 22 of the RFA. It does give you 2 pages, which are not counted against your total page limit for the narrative. But on those 2 pages, we need you to provide detailed business and management plans, including the expected data type, the data format, how that data is going to be stored and preserved, because the intention is that your data will be made publicly available and it will be stored according to the regulations in perpetuity. Now, we may have to find different storage management systems as technology continues to improve, because if you just think back a few decades and over the last few decades, that has changed dramatically, and some of the systems we would have used even 10 or 20 years ago aren't even readable today for all practical purposes. But we do need a plan that will at least put it in the public domain in a format that can be read, and it needs to be shown in your data plan what that format is, how it's going to be stored, where it's going to be stored. Your thoughts about sharing and protecting and granting public access, and particularly the roles and responsibilities of your team of who's going to do it, so that it's real clear that it not only will be done, but how it's going to be done. I will stress, though, the most important piece is to go to that link there and read it thoroughly, because these few little bullet points won't detail it in its entirety.
So NIFA only accepts electronic submissions of applications, and then the NIFA grants application guide is available at that link. And then all of the application documents must be in portable document format, otherwise known as PDF, to be accepted by NIFA, including your narrative and budget justifications. And grants.gov does allow other formats to be included, like Word or Excel. However, NIFA does not. And please don't use third-party PDF builders when you're submitting.
And now let's look at the evaluation process for your application. So all proposals that are submitted to this program will be subjected to our peer panel process. So before you even submit your proposal, we recruit someone, a panel manager. We will go around the country and recruit panelists based on their expertise. When you submit your proposal, depending on your subject of your investigation, that proposal will be assigned to at least 3 experts. Those 3 experts will review your applications individually in isolation based on the strengths and the weaknesses of your application. They will then produce a written review that are submitted to our program. After that first step, we will convene our panel. That is the panel of experts. During that meeting, the written review of your proposal will be used to start the discussion in panel. And every member of the panel will have a say on that process. Throughout that whole discussion, the peer review panel will come to a consensus on the ranking, on the final ranking of your proposal relative to all other proposals received in the program. So the key thing here to understand that you are competing with all other applications in the program. And we usually say, just checking all the boxes to make sure that you have all the documents will not be a guarantee for receiving funding. You still need to compete with everyone else in the program, and only the top proposals are funded. This is on page 24 of the RFA. And to make that process fair, we have also published the criteria for evaluating your proposal. That criteria is listed on page 25 to 26 of the RFA. We have 2 key criteria. The first is the proposal relevance. And proposal relevance depends on the type of proposal that you are submitting, whether it is an integrated proposal, a conference, or a planning project. I will urge every applicant to go on page 25, 26 to see the specific details based on the type of proposal that you are submitting. The second criteria is the proposal quality. Is the concept that you are proposing adequate? We are looking at the approach. What approach are you using to reach the objective of the project? Are you involving the appropriate and relevant expertise? Are the people working on the project qualified to do so? Do they have the experience? We don't spend a lot of time on the budget. but we want to see if the budget is appropriate. We also look at the feasibility and probability of success. Finally, Catherine talked about a couple of guidelines there for the proposal. We want to make sure that you follow all those guidelines, including those in the data management plan. We also receive a lot of questions about the timeline. When I submit my application, when will I hear back from NEFA? Once the request for application is released, we usually are allowed about 1 to 2 months for proposal due dates. Once we get those proposals in, it takes another 2 to 3 months for us to go through the peer review panel and to make proposal funding notification. And if you are lucky to have one of the awards or for your project to be recommended for an award, it would take another 1 to 2 months for us to finalize and make that award. So on average, a competitive grant program may take 3 to 5 months from the proposal due date to the time when we are able to make the award itself. So please we will keep you updated as much as possible. And we appreciate your patience during that process. Here are just some of the additional key information. Many applicants usually ask us, where can I see the list of proposals that have been funded previously by the program? You can go to the Current Research Information System, the CRIS system, and do the search. But we did that for you. The link here at the bottom of this page, if you click on that link, you will get all the projects that have been funded through these programs. So please use that. We also, if you're interested in knowing what is happening at NEFA, some of our meetings and webinars, you can click on this first bullet, the link on the first bullet. If you are interested in knowing what RFA is in the pipeline for release, the second bullet there, the link will provide you that information. Finally, here are just a few resources that could help you put together your application. Please take the time to go through each of these, but the most important one for this program is the last bullet, the National and the NEFA Organic Programs. If you click on that link, you will get more information on our organic programs, and that will probably answer a lot of your questions. With that, again, this is our NEFA Organic Programs team. You have our email, you have our cell phone. Please give us a call or drop us an email anytime if you have a question. With that, I will stop sharing my screen now so that we can move to the question and answer session. And during that, I will ask Catherine to look at the chat or the Q&A box and read the questions for us.
Okay. We have a couple of questions in the Q&A box. The first one is from Jennifer Banter. Organic farming in avocados shows that it significantly lowers fruit production. Why would a farmer who doesn't use any pesticides or herbicides, who can't get organic certification because they use a synthetic fertilizer, which is best for the trees, and carefully monitor their irrigation so there is no nitrogen runoff, want to lower their production just to get a few more cents per pound? There seems to be more nitrogen in organic fertilizers, causing our algae blooms in the ocean. I feel the program is not good for farms and needs to be reevaluated. I propose a new certification called Naturally Grown Without Pesticides or Herbicides, or Zero Pesticides / Zero Herbicide. Please help us conventional small farms. Would you like to comment on that, Steve or Matt?
Sure. Well, thank you for your question. I'll make a couple of comments. And first is that if organic certification is not seen by you as valuable or useful or economically advantageous for you, there is nothing to compel you to seek certification. The other point I'll make about this program is this is not a program for advocacy. What this program does is supports the research, education, and extension that is warranted by organic agriculture as a significant segment of our food system. And they would deserve that support just like conventional production does, which has its own strengths and weaknesses. So with that, I think we have our answer to your question through those two comments. But thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And again, what this program is doing is just implementing a mandate from Congress.
That's true.
That is what we do. And anything that has to change that mandate needs to go through Congress, probably not the program itself. And where you look at the size of this program relative to what we found in agriculture as a whole, this does not even represent maybe 1% of what is spent on agricultural research. So thanks. That was a great comment though. Thank you.
Right. Our next question is, no direct assistance to producers means financial assistance or technical assistance?
Very good question. Since that came from my slide, I'm going to jump in. Absolutely, we can cover technical assistance. That's a required component of our integrated projects. You know, that we call it extension, we call it outreach, but absolutely that's an allowable expense. What I'm talking about is direct payments to farmers, much like you would see, well, with the organic programs within NRCS, where you can apply for and get direct funding to support your agricultural operation. And we're talking, you know, at the producer level. You know, there are many programs out there that, you know, either through Farm Service Agency or some of these others that where you can get that kind of support, but that type is not fundable through these grants. But absolutely, technical assistance is.
Yeah, I think you were referring to the organic certification cost share program within NRCS, Dave. Yeah, those are the ones that provide direct payment to organic producers. This program, we do actually encourage researchers to compensate farmers if they are using their facility. And that is usually seen as a very good thing in our panel during the review process. But direct payment to farmers where they will just apply to us asking funding, let's say to purchase a land or equipment like Steve was saying, that is what we are referring to. We do not provide that.
The next question is, good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction. I was wondering who could serve on the advisory panel. Can the farmers participating on the project be in this role? Thanks.
Okay, the question is, I will rephrase it, who can serve on our panel, peer panel review process? Those are experts in the organic sector. And those are not just scientists. We have had some years when producers, farmers were able to serve on our program. It depends on your area of expertise. We also have people from the organic industry. Those could be certifying agents. Those could be extension educators. So it is not just university scientists and researchers that serve on our panel. Now, the key thing here is tricky. Recruiting on our panel, it's a very difficult balancing act because we usually do not bring in two people from the same state. We cannot bring two people from the same university. So sometimes even when the panel manager really want to have someone serve, could be that they already have another person from the same state or another person with the same skill set. So we try to put together a panel based on all those criteria, which may be sometimes very difficult.
And our next question is, if we use livestock grazing on residue and cover crops for improving organic system crop performance and soil health, but not focusing on livestock production and animal assessment, is it okay to use animals that are not organic?
That's when I think I would need to research just a little bit before, definitively answering, because in effect, you're creating an integrated livestock and cropping system, but only transitioning one and not the other. You can use composted manure from those cattle, but once you start having that manure, in fact, direct applied, I would want to encourage you to talk to your certifying agent, because I think there may be some variation in opinions. They are the keeper of the keys when it comes to the National Organic Program and how it applies to your farm. So that's your best answer. But I think that one falls in the gray area. So that's where that's where I'm going to have to leave it, because I don't want to mislead you.
Yeah. And again, for the system to be certified, all components will need to be certified organic.
Mm-hmm.
So like Steve said, if you are in doubt, just check with a certifying agent. Will you certify this system? And they will tell you yes or not. And if we do receive a proposal with something like that, we are still going to refer to the National Organic Standard Board, the National Organic Program, to guide us on whether that should be certified or not. But it's better for you to do that in the front end, rather than spend all that time developing a proposal just to realize that their practice will not be certifiable.
And then the next question, for proposal resubmissions, can the reviewer comments be summarized and simplified so we can have more space used for responding to comments to make it less than 3 pages? Thanks.
And the answer is yes, you are not required to use all those 3 pages. You are not even required to answer every single comment from the review panel. Our advice is just to focus on the most important comment and make your response as simple and concise as possible. So don't feel like you need to use all 3 pages.
Can you conduct on-farm trials with the ORG program?
Yes. Now we will be talking in the next hour. Well, actually, in about a half an hour, we will be talking in detail about the Organic Transitions Program. But for both of these programs, it's allowable and sometimes even encouraged, depending on your objective, to work with collaborating farms.
All right, the next question, I was hoping for some more clarity on external evaluator. Is an evaluator within the same institution, but not a PD or co-PD acceptable?
We have very strict rules on how we select people to evaluate our proposal. If someone submits from a state or an institution, that evaluator will be immediately in conflict with that proposal. So you submit a proposal from University A, any evaluator from that university will be in conflict and will not even see that proposal. That is how we try to keep everything fair, and it will be benefit everyone because that appearance of conflict of interest to us is very important. Anything to add, Steve, on that?
No, I think you covered that quite well.
The next question is, hi, lavender is grown in Colorado by 25 small medium farms. It is a specialty crop in USDA. Does this program support projects on lavender?
We don't discriminate. To be competitive, of course, you have to have a compelling application. But if it is, in the case of OREI, if it's being produced under organic standards on certified land, it is eligible to be considered for research support and well, research extension and education support.
What is the success rate of recent OREI and ORG applications?
Okay, yeah, we hear a lot about that. Yeah, I would say the success rate, I don't have the numbers right here in front of me, but it was close to 20-25% for OREI last year, and even higher for ORG. For some reason, we did not receive a lot of proposals last year, even though the budget increased. We even had a larger increase of budget this year, and we expect the applicant population will react to that.
And that's true also for OREI. We're getting a really large jump, and that might have been what you're referring to, Matt, in OREI. And I think we will see both application numbers, but also success rates climb a little bit this year. So we look forward to that.
How should we define the salaries for personnel in this program? Should we consider the full PhD or MSc researcher salaries per year in average academic or industry salary range?
You know, is a piece that you'll detail in your budget and your budget summary. And it's whatever exists at your institution. So if you're looking for summer salary, it will be your projected summer salary, and you can detail the benefits there, just the percent of benefits. If it's for a graduate student, what's your graduate student stipend, and what do you think inflation is going to do over the 3 to 4 years of your proposal? If it's a postdoc, okay, what are you paying postdocs? But it's very institution specific, and it would be detailed in your budget.
Okay. Is there any way that we can amend the start date of the project after we are selected for funding? This amendment is needed due to purchase equipment or personnel hiring, which has involuntary delays.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Okay, it is possible in some cases, but I would I would want to talk to you a little bit more about, what's the need, and how critical is it that you move the start date, as opposed to entertaining the idea that if it does delay the start of the project, you can go ahead and initiate with an earlier start date. You can go ahead and initiate expenses. If the project is delayed because of these acquisitions or recruiting, a no-cost extension could be used to extend the end date of your grant, and is actually far simpler than trying to amend a start date once the award's been made.
Because this is a one-year program, and we have to get all the awards finalized and get the money out by the end of September every year. So we can delay your start date, but we cannot delay it past the end of September of the fiscal year. And in fact, we try not to even go beyond September 1, because things can easily fall through the cracks as we process those awards, and any money that is not spent can easily be lost.
It actually gets returned to the Treasury and does not come back to OREI to spend in a future year, it's gone. So that's a very good point, Matt.
Okay, thinking back on the earlier question regarding the advisory panel, I think they're talking about the advisory panel within tier 1 proposals. Can farmers serve on that?
Absolutely. That is actually the best advisors for a project. So if you have an advisory panel without a farmer on it, I don't think it will panel very well. So the answer is yes, because they are the end users of your project. They need to be at the table.
Okay, and then the next, there was another question that needs a little more clarification. My question was about evaluators in the grant, not the people reviewing the proposal, but co-PDs or someone from the same institution.
Yeah, okay. I see the question is more about project evaluation. Yes, those could be within the same institution. No problem. So you can have your project evaluator within your institution. There is no conflict of interest there.
Yeah, and then between the 3 and 4 years research, which one is USDA priorities? The more years cost more.
I would ask for a little clarification on that question. Maybe it's clear to you, Matt.
To me,
the project duration, as long as it fits the scale and scope of your project, we don't have a preference. So if that's your concern, that would be my answer.
exact. And usually the project itself will dictate the duration.
Yes.
Let's say if you are studying a crop rotation, clearly corn, soybean, and something else, you cannot propose a 1 or 2 year. We want to see that full rotation cycle. For most of the studies, we want to see at least the studies repeated over time or space, meaning that you cannot do it all in 1 year. So depending on the type of studies, it may require up to 4 years. We are allowing people to request up to 4 years right now. But that depends on you. We have no preference.
Is there a certain number of awards allocated for tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3?
Thank you for asking that question. We started this system actually several years ago. Gosh, it's been at least 5 or more years ago. And Matt and I labored over that question, like, should there be carve outs for tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 and trying to make sure there's an appropriate balance. And we ultimately decided to at least try to let the panel process just make those decisions on our behalf and trust the panel to balance them appropriately. And I'll have to say, I have been very impressed with their ability to, without rigid guidelines, to look at the larger proposals and evaluate their scale and scope, but then come back and look at the smaller proposals and oftentimes point to them and say, man, we're getting a lot for our money on that one. And because the challenge we put to our panel each year is to, I often use the term, bring order to chaos. You've got this random array of applications of varying quality and merit, and we want you to put these in rank order according to scientific merit and set size aside, set scale and scope aside. And they do a brilliant job of looking at some of the smaller ones and saying, that's a really powerful application. The scientific merit's great. And even though it's a smaller scale, and they can have that same impression on the larger ones, even to the point where they might hold the larger ones to a much higher standard in some ways, because they've got to meet that compelling nature. They have to come across as a compelling application, spending $3.5 million. And sometimes that's a harder job than spending a lesser amount. So again, I think we get a good balance from year to year to year. And the concerns that I had initially have proven to be unfounded. But thank you for the question, because I really like to tell that story.
All right, we are limited for time, so hopefully we can squeeze another one in. What systems are in place to not favor the larger grants and make sure that smaller grants receive full consideration?
That's the answer we just gave. That there's no special guards or guidelines. It just is a natural occurrence of the panel process, and we do watch it when we would intervene if we found that there was a problem. But it's gone really well for us. So we haven't had a need to step in and put safeguards in place because they haven't been warranted.
All right, Matt, do you want to take another question? I know we're over time.
Yeah, let you get one last question.
Okay. So how does the USDA pay the awarded proposals for the new private agriculture research institution? I mean, how should the payment scheduling be by this program?
That is detailed in the RFA, as well as the RFA references a lot of additional documents that particularly for a new user, they would have to, and please read them early, and read them very early and respond to them, because there's registrations that are required and systems that need to be entered. You need to be entered into to receive these payments, and it's all outlined in those documents. And it can be done. It is done, but you do have to take the time to get the registrations you need in order to be entered into that payment system.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, with that, we say thank you again for attending our webinar. Everything has been recorded and will be posted, so go back to the link. I don't know, maybe a couple of days from now, you will have the PowerPoint presentation and the recording of the webinar. With that, thank you again for attending the webinar.